Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I want to walk you through a math lesson in which we are exploring the number 1. Now this math lesson is suitable for young elementary students all the way up until about age 9. We're going to be exploring the number 1 using a variety of resources. We're also going to be working on a chalk drawing. Now while 1 is pretty simple, as you get to the upper numbers up until the number 12 and we're doing our multiplication and division, it's going to get quite complicated. So I'm presenting this for students between the ages of 7 and 9. And so 1 will be really simple to begin with. Now, because we homeschool, it's my intention to present lessons that can appeal to multiple ages. And so some of the resources I have are suitable for very young children, especially the picture book that I have chosen to explore the number 1. And so I feel that this is a way that you can invite younger children into the lesson and keep everyone engaged. As you know, when you're homeschooling multiple students, it's sometimes difficult to attend to all of their needs, and creating lessons or unit studies that appeal to multiple ages, I think, is a great way in order to incorporate all of your children or all of your students. Okay, so we're also going to work on a chalk drawing a little bit later, but let me get through these materials, which will be repeated as we go into numbers 2 through 12. So the first thing I want to share with you is how we would actually present this lesson. So prior to the lesson, you would prepare your chalk drawing if you wish to do one. And you can have that ready when you start the lesson. The first thing that you will do in the lesson is begin with your opening activities. And you could either do circle time or morning basket. And with our opening activities, we're going to do some things that relate to the lesson, but you can also choose that time to do things that relate to other lessons that you're going to be doing later in the week or in the month, or you can use that time to review some of the things that you have done in previous lessons. For today, I'm just going to show you materials that will relate to the lesson so that you can see some of the materials that are math related that work well for opening activities. So to begin with, we can start with either our picture book or we can start with a poem. And I have the Waldorf book of poetry, and there's a section on numbers and grammar, and there are a number of poems that relate to math, and you can either do one of them that spans the entire unit, or you can do a different one every day for each number that you're going to be discovering or exploring for that day. So if you want to explore number 1, I think a great poem for exploring number 1 is 1, 2, Buckle My Shoe. This is a traditional nursery rhyme. You can actually sing this in your opening activities, and this will be a really great way to begin your lesson. The book that I have chosen to explore number 1 is called One Bear Lost. This is a really charming, beautifully illustrated picture book, and it starts with all 10 bears, and it's a really great story for even younger students. They love to look for the bears, and then the one bear is off, and this book takes you from 10 back down to 1 by subtracting one number each time. And so you're basically exploring the number 1 by working backwards from 10 all the way to 1 by subtracting one bear each time you go through the pages. So it's a really charming, beautiful book. I think it appeals to multiple age groups. It is a little bit juvenile, so I wouldn't suggest it for older elementary, but it is a fun book to include so that you can explore the number 1 and also include younger students in the lesson. I also want to share that you can get a lot more ideas on exploring all of the numbers by checking out my friend's curriculum. Della over at Beauty of Play has done her own Quality of Numbers curriculum where she's exploring all the numbers up until 12 with all kinds of resources, video links, and projects that go through all of the different numbers. So I encourage you to check that out if you want more ideas than the ones that I am presenting today. This is a very rich resource, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so let's continue. Another resource that you can use for yourself as a teacher is called the Quality of Numbers 1 to 31. This is going to take you through the numbers all the way to 31. Traditionally in school, especially in a Waldorf setting, you're usually stopping at the number 12, but this is going to give you some interesting, some interesting background on each of the numbers, and some wisdoms behind the number, and some things that you can see in nature regarding each of the numbers. And if you're at a loss for story ideas or for seeing those numbers reflected in nature or in the world around you, this would be a really good book to use. So traditionally, when we're looking at the number 1, we're thinking, what in your world is just 1? And you might go through all of these things, like there's only one sun, or there's only one moon, or there's only one earth, and then you want to eventually have the child recognize that there's only truly just one of them. There is only one child like them in the whole world, with their name and their birthday and their soul. And so that's what we're trying to go towards. So that's part of exploring the number 1, is just finding that you are singular and special. And so this book will also have other ideas on how to explore the other numbers. King Maximo and the Number Knights. This is going to go through the numbers 1 through 12. And so if you want to start with this book and do 1 chapter a day, starting with the number 1, then you're going to find also other ideas on seeing these numbers represented in nature and in shapes. And it's a really beautiful, charming story that explores those numbers with a king and the knights, and they have their shields that then the shields represent that number in the form of something in nature or something geometric. So this is another option that, again, this book will be repeated throughout all the numbers that we're going through, because it has a lesson on number 1, but then it continues. Okay, so actually that was more part of the lesson than the opening activities. So let's jump back into like the opening activities. A game that I think is really great for your opening activities is the 24 game. And this is a card game in which you are adding or subtracting in order to typically make the number 24, but in this particular game, which is directed for children 6 and up, you're just trying to make the number that's indicated on the card. They come with 3 different levels of difficulty, and those levels of difficulty you can see here with the different numbers. So we have a number 1 card and a number 2 card and then a number 3 card, and that indicates the level of difficulty. So in a number 1 card, you're trying to make the number 10, and you have 2 choices here to work through, and you're only using addition and subtraction. So you have 16 and 6, and then you have 13 and 5. And so you can use this area here and do 16 minus 6 to get the number 10. And then if you get the answer right, you can keep the card, and then you can count them all up in the end and see how many points you got if your children are competitive. If not, then it can just be a collaborative game where everyone's trying to work together in order to solve the problems. So then it increases in difficulty, and you can see that there are different numbers that you're trying to achieve. This game does get quite a bit more challenging with some of the other games that they provide, and you are trying just to get to the number 24 with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and sometimes you're working with fractions and decimals and negative numbers. So it can get quite challenging. I think this game is just right for a child who's just starting to explore math. It's pretty intuitive and simple, and it's a lot of fun. Now, the way that we play it generally is we might just pick a number of cards to play, because obviously the deck has a ton of cards. So we might just pick 5 cards to play, or we might just play for 10 minutes. Otherwise, this can become the entire lesson. Here's another game that works really well with the younger ages, and it's something that, again, you don't have to do all of these for your opening activities. You can maybe do 1 poem, 1 book, and 1 game, and that is sufficient. This game is by Ibu, and it comes with these really beautiful, durable, double-sided game cards, and then you've got like the different pieces here where you have all of these upside down, and you pick one, and then you are trying to see if any of your equations equal 9, and then you can put them down. And then once you have the whole board filled up, then you win. So this is a really great game that's really great for the younger ages. It's actually really fun even if you're older, but the educational value does diminish as you get older. I feel it's great if you need to review or if you're introducing some of these simple addition and subtraction concepts, but after a while, it's just a fun game to play, and we've enjoyed this in our homeschool. Plus, it's really durable and really well made, and so I really appreciate that quality from the Ibu toys. Okay, let's move on to a product that is brand new for me. This is by Lino Natura, and this is a multiplication board, and it goes up to 9 times 9. So I'm a little disappointed that it doesn't go up all the way to 12 times 12. However, it is super gorgeous, and I really like it. There's a few different ways that you can use this board. If you're exploring number 1, then you might just want to stick down here to these pink tiles or cylinders, and on the one side there is the question, multiplication, and on the other side there is the answer. So you could just explore this. If you're just starting out with your student, you might just go through and just do 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2. If you wish to do it that way, you can also flip them over and look at the answer and do what makes 1. 1 times 1 makes 1. And same with 2. 2 is 1 times 2. 3 is 1 times 3. And that might be a little bit more of a Waldorf approach where you're starting with what looks like the answer. And really what you're saying is, what makes 3? Well, actually an infinite number of equations makes 3, but we are focused on the multiplication table at this point, but it could really be anything. You could use this for addition. What makes 3? 1 plus 2 makes 3. What makes 3? You could do it with subtraction. 5 minus 2 makes 3. And for division, what makes 3? 9 divided by 3 makes 3. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this board. The pieces are really well made. They are chokables. Please be aware of that. So that if you've got really young children in your homeschool, please be very cautious with these because they are just the right size to fit in a very young child's mouth. And so we want to be very careful with these. The other thing is that I don't know the quality of the paint. So also don't put them in your mouth, as well. Okay. So as we go through all of the numbers, we can take these and we can put them all in the bag and shake them up, and we can pull them out. And whether you pull out the answer or the question, you can then pose that. If you pull out 5 times 5, you can just say, what's 5 times 5? And you could say 25. Or if you pull it out and you see 25 first, you can say, what makes 25? And then your answer could be 5 times 5. Or you can get creative and you can say, what 2 numbers together make 25? Or what 3 numbers together make 25? So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this. If we're just exploring 1, there's actually a lot that you can do while you're just exploring 1. You can again ask the question, what makes 9? And it can be 1 times 9 makes 9. Or you can say 1 plus 1 plus 1, etc. until you get to 9 makes 9. So you can get creative with this. It doesn't have to be just the way that it looks like it's intended for. I like this because of the possibilities. So that's for also exploring the number 1. Let's move on. Dice are a great addition to your exploration of the numbers because you can use them in order to create questions, especially if you have the addition and subtraction dice. We have also a multiplication one, and then we have numbers that go up to even higher numbers here. So do explore having a nice good set of dice because that's going to be a lot of fun with your opening activities. Okay, so one more thing that you can do, and actually it can be for your nighttime activities or bedtime math. I really like this book because the stories that go along with the math are actually more engaging than the math itself. And often I've found myself creating my own questions because I find that the consistency between the level 1, 2, and 3 questions vary greatly from page to page. Sometimes the level 1 questions are challenging enough for my daughter, and other times they are way too simple. And so I will read the story which she loves, and then sometimes I'll just make up several questions to go along with this. So this is a lot of fun. I know it's called Bedtime Math. You of course can use it with your opening activities while you're exploring any of the numbers from 1 to 12. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you are these geo boards, and this one is just for the number 1, but as you get into the other numbers, you will be creating the different designs, but this is just 1. So it has 1, Roman numeral 1, it says point, and then it says 1 because you're not making any shape yet. So as soon as you get to 3 and you're making a triangle, you can see that 3 points together make a triangle, but right now it's just a single point. On the back, you can see that you have the 1 in the middle, you have the numbers 1 to 10, and then you have the numbers again 1 to 10 because 1 times 2 makes 2, 1 times 3 makes 3. So this is another really great way to explore the number 1. Also, we're going to make a number line as part of our lesson. One other thing I have are our little numbers 1 through 6 or 7, I think 1 through 7. And so these are just peg dolls. You can just leave them plain and just write the numbers on them. We also have our 4 math operation peg dolls as well, and you can use those as you start exploring the 4 mathematical operations. And these are just really charming and something tactile that the children can have. As we move into multiplication, I like having one that represents a parent and then the children as a form of multiplication. So if you've got one parent and she has three kids, that's 1 times 3 makes 3. And if you have 2 parents and they each have 3 kids, that's like 2 times 3 makes 6. And then you can count up the little children. And that's just something fun that you can do that's tactile and visual at the same time. Okay, so let's move on to working on our chalk drawing for exploring the number 1. So I have a chalkboard here that's a little over 2 feet by 3 feet, and this is a really good size to create our chalk drawing and leave it up for a couple of days and then move on to another one if you don't have a full-size chalkboard in your school space. And for this, we're going to be using our square chalk pastels. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is draw a sun. And, you know, because the children aren't watching the whole process, once it's done, you're going to see the whole thing. But I'm going to start by drawing a sun because part of the lesson for number 1 is that I want them to see that sun, there's just the one sun. So I'm just going to draw a sun here. And I'm going to add a little bit of orange, and that is looking less like a sun than I expected. So I'm going to come back in with my yellow and make those rays kind of come out. Okay, so that's sun. And since I've got my yellow, I'm just going to continue with my yellow, and I'm going to write the number 1. Where do I want to write 1? Let's go ahead and write it up here. Let me move these things here so we have a little bit more space. And we're going to write the number 1 right up here. Okay, and we're also going to draw a circle here, and I want a fairly large circle, and then a smaller circle here, and then the circle this way. That way we can write our 1 and our 2 and our 2 and our 1 and 1 and 1 and so on and so forth. So I am going to look for an object that we can use. And I think I'm going to use this bowl here. And again, with my yellow, I'm going to go around the bowl. If you have a chalkboard compass, you can use the chalkboard compass. And then I'm just going to come around with it again. Now, the circle is also a great symbol to use, or great geometric shape to use for the number 1. And then I'm going to use this one or this one. Let's see if I've got something else that's going to work. We're going to start with a really tiny one in the center, and we might just have to just freehand our next circle. Really just doing it with the things that I have around here. Okay, and then to kind of imagine this being the next circle. Okay, and we are going to, I think we might, I think it's going to be easier for us to do 12 divisions. No, yeah, 12. So that's 4. And then, so again, just eyeballing it. Okay, so okay, so we're going to start with our 1 in the middle, and I'm just going to go to orange here, and 1 times 1. Let's start with 1 times 1. 1 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I'm going to move on to the red here, or red-orange, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of orange. Along the outside. Okay, so that will be exploring multiplication. Let me move these things and then do our number line. And we can, if you choose to add a little bit of spelling into the lesson, you can also take this time to write the number 1. I'm just going to write it right up here. Okay, so that we've got the number 1, and now we're going to come down here, and I'm going to make a number line, and I'm not going to go into the negative numbers. We're just going to start our line right here, and we're going to go here, and it's not a perfectly straight line, and we're going to start at 0, and I might need to extend the line or shorten it. Let me see if I can eyeball these. Oops, that is definitely not. You can also use a ruler. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's go ahead and maybe add one more. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and write the numbers below. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then we can explore going forward with our number line. That's just 1. And you can also go backwards. 4 minus 1 makes 3. So you can, oops, you couldn't see those numbers. There you go. So you can do a number of things with your number line to explore the number 1. You also maybe want to walk in paces of 1. So every pace of 1 is 1. Or when you get to some of the upper numbers, you can or you can skip, or you can do a quick 2 pace, or hop with 2 feet, or do 1, 2, 3 when you're doing the 3s, and you can do skip, skip, jump for getting to some of the upper numbers. When you're doing 1, it's not quite as creative in some ways, or maybe it's more creative because you have to really use some of your skills to dive into how you can explore 1. So these are some ideas of exploring the number 1. I would love to hear some of your thoughts on how you explore and introduce the number 1. If you'd like to see some of the other math video tutorials I have on my channel, you can tap on the screen right now. That link is also down in the description box below. And don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video for more resources and pictures. And if you want to see how our homeschool is progressing on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.